A warm welcome to the show. We tend to think of clothes as something superficial, but in times of war, clothing can take on an entirely different meaning. A new exhibition at the Warsaw Rising Museum explores how war transformed the way Warsaw's residents dressed, from the elegance of the pre-war capital to the shortages of occupation and ultimately the Warsaw Uprising, when even an ordinary summer dress could become a uniform. To discuss, I'm joined by Karolina Sulej, sartorial anthropologist. Hello and welcome. Delighted to have you.
Happy to be here as always. Thank you for having me.
So, Karolina, let's start with pre-war Warsaw. How important was clothing and fashion to the inhabitants of Warsaw then?
I think that Warsaw was on the rise, nomen omen, and as a city that is trying to be fashionable, trying and succeeding in showing how modernity affects society. So many women had wider access to clothing than before. They could go to a place that is open for all the classes. So you would say the house of fashion of pre-modern sort, but affordable clothes were available to everyone, or even they could ask for the clothes to be sent to their home. So it's the first catalog dresses to be bought. And also what is important, clothes were a sign of the rise of emancipated women who were able to walk down the street, to show off their clothing, to play sports, to just enjoy the city life for the very first time in history. So the commercial market was born. Women were seen as consumers, as customers, and they wanted to look pretty, but also elegant, because their position in society became something that could be achieved through clothes. And being elegant was associated with being of higher class. So it was, I think, the first period in history when fake it till you make it was applied. And fashion was born as something that we consider modern and obvious today.
Then the war and occupation happened, and all of a sudden there was a shortage of everything.
We have to imagine that suddenly a very lively city full of colors and designs and young artists and people who wanted to show off, but also to create. It was a very lively country. We were, born just a minute ago. And suddenly we were isolated. Suddenly we had to cope with what we had at home, what we had in our drawers, what we had in our wardrobes. So women were facing a crisis that they had to address with, for example, making do and mending what they have and dealing with materials and textiles that they didn't use before. For example, curtains, tablecloth. Because of the military effort, fur, leather was needed in the army and associated with all that should be applied to the front lines. So women were destined to have innovative ideas because everything was scarce. Everything was more difficult to reach, and depending, of course, also on your position in this wartime occupation period, whether you were a part of the underground army, whether you wanted to be visible and dress up. It was seen like a treason almost if you were to dress up, too shiny, flashy and pretty. But at the same time, women felt they shouldn't present themselves as victims, that they should preserve their look, and it's a way of a sort of a guerrilla kind of gesture that women felt that there was this patriotic energy underneath their daily fashions, that what they choose is something that they represent as Polish women, not only, as women who have different tastes in fashion, but they had this idea that how they look like is a way of signaling that we are still alive, that we are still dignified, that we are still looking towards the future, that we are not, reduced to just pure survival. This is something very important, because fashion is all about freedom, celebrating life, and beauty is something that enriches you and gives you strength when you fight. People sometimes overlook it, but it's resilience. It's a way of being sure of yourself. It's a way of signaling that we are still capable of just keeping up.
Fashion as an act, staying fashionable as an act of defiance.
Yes, exactly.
A few years back, you wrote a book about personal belongings. Personal belongings, a story of clothing in concentration and extermination camps.
Exactly.
Can you share some of those stories with us?
I know that it sounds almost sacrilegious, but as I'm talking about occupation, it was the same thing during the uprising for women trying to keep up appearances in a way to keep up their mood and preserve their courage. And in concentration camp, it was even more, I would say, important and even more crucial to show that you are yourself through fashion, because in concentration camp you had two radical ends of the spectrum. One is the uniform that you have an officer dressed with, and it's a figure of power, and all the people who were in the camps as victims, and as inmates, they were reduced to a uniform, a number, and this uniform was not about creating opportunity to differentiate between one another, but they were reduced to being not a person, but just a tool. So when they were signaling through even the way you tie your scarf, or how you wear your sack that you were provided with, or how you wear your jacket, if you show a little bit more of what's underneath or not, gestures, little gestures that made you feel as a person, as an individual. And sometimes it might seem irrational, but sometimes people preferred to risk their lives to achieve an item of clothing that was singular and only for them, to just staying safe in what they received, the garb they received, because this garb was designed to deprive them of their humanity, to kill them, so to say, in a cultural way, so they wouldn't have strength to live anymore. So clothes are very powerful. They have the power to uplift you, to give you strength, like magically transform, magically, because clothing is something that we live with. It touches our body and it touches our mind, and it creates relationships within people around you. So whether you're conscious of it or not, it's a very powerful tool of being a human being and stigmatizing or appreciating someone. So this book that I wrote has almost 500 pages, and it's still not enough. I'm still exploring the subject, and also this subject suddenly became very up to date, unfortunately, because people in Ukraine right now, I'm working at a foundation that's caring for, through culture, fashion, and design, for the refugees, especially women. And they confess, and also people who stayed in Ukraine, they confess that how they behave on a daily basis, how they wash their hair, even when there's power shortages, how they present their clothes, how they show off their culture and identity, regional through wyszywanka, so this very special.
I was going to ask you about the wyszywanka.
Yeah,
I was wondering, how has fashion in Ukraine changed since the start of the war?
We see all sorts of brands and many designers. Some of the brands were already there before the war, but I think that when the war started, this wave of fashion interest with this special national flair started, and now it's at its peak. We have this certain place in Kyiv that's dedicated. It's a shop. It's like a big fashion house dedicated solely to people from Ukraine. You have many independent designers. We have like giant fashion brands with huge following, like Ruslan Bagiński or Etnodim or Gunia Project. But also we have many regional designers and people who are just activists who want to express their attitude through clothing or accessories. They want to be seen as Ukrainians, and people who support Ukraine want to wear Ukrainian clothing.
Karolina, before we go, I wanted to go back
Yes.
82 years to August of 1944. What did an insurgent in Warsaw look like? Because they were lacking uniforms.
Yes, they lacked uniforms. Of course, they lacked guns. Like, there were young people eager and enthusiastic to fight. And there were many ways of demonstrating this enthusiasm through clothing. For example, women were thinking ahead and taking, for example, one of the women that were fighting. She was hopeful, and she was thinking, okay, I have to take a dress for the victory, so it should be a nice dress. I will put it in my bag. But many women just, came like me in a flowery dress. They were very fashionable at the time, and maybe a jacket or a sweater, something to comb your hair. And that's all, because everybody thought that it would end soon, and it was summer. Some women thought that they should wear their hair in a proper way, and it wouldn't be easy, while you're fighting for your life. So they thought, okay, so I'm gonna go to the saloon and, get a perm or something, so it would be more comfortable. Some of them weave their hair in a bun or tried to apply something functional to their look so they could move around. So the bags were little. It was not like, a fashion show, but they wanted to look pretty to make a good impression. Also for the boys, it was very much underlined that they wanted to represent, that they wanted to show them that they are keeping up, that everything is fine, so to say, without telling, a word, like through their appearance. But also, this started to change when they reached Stawki. It was a military depot of the German officers, so they were able to have uniforms for themselves, also women, all sorts of camouflage that they also tried to decorate with their own, ways of accessorizing. There are many beautiful photographs of women, in these big military German uniforms, like trying to accommodate them. But a lot of them, were in this one dress that they picked up on the very first day till the very last day. They didn't have any, ways of demonstrating that there are soldiers apart from this white and red band with Armia Krajowa symbol, and that's all. So it was just a bunch of young people trying to fight with all they had at their proximity, and trying to support each other while being young and beautiful. It's something that we shouldn't forget about. It's not something that undermines their courage. It's something that gives you an understanding why they had such hope and why they were fierce, because they were just very vital and young and full of this idea that everything will end up well.
Karolina Sulej, thank you so very much for joining us. Much appreciated. And thank you for watching Parts of Culture. Please stay tuned for more here on TVP World.